The TC Bad Homburg. June 22, 2026. The grass is slick with evening dew. The stands are supposed to be overflowing. The atmosphere is supposed to be electric. The Eala effect was supposed to transform this quiet German town into a sea of Filipino flags. Just 48 hours earlier, Alexandra Eala was the hottest name in tennis. She had electrified the world in Berlin, stunning world number 2 Elena Rybakina, dismantling world number 8 Elise Svitolina. 2 top 10 wins in a single week. A historic Wimbledon seed secured. The Filipina sensation was the story of the grass court season. The Bad Homburg Open had given her a wildcard entry, hoping to capitalize on her soaring popularity. They had sold tickets on the promise of watching the Eala phenomenon. Fans had traveled from across Europe, the Filipino community had rallied, the organizers had expected record crowds. And then, the unthinkable happened. Less than 48 hours after her Berlin campaign ended, Eala walked onto the center court in Bad Homburg, and the magic vanished. A 3-6, 3-6 defeat. A first-round exit. The earliest departure of her entire grass season. The woman who had beaten the world number 2 just days earlier had been dismantled by a Belgian veteran, the crowds that were supposed to fill the stands. They began walking away. The tickets that had sold out on the promise of Eala's presence. Suddenly worthless. The tournament that had banked on the Eala effect. Left scrambling. The fans who had come to see a superstar were left with nothing but disappointment. This is the story of that collapse. This is the story of how a dream run met a brutal reality. And this is the story of the ticket crisis that has left the Bad Homburg Open in chaos. Let's begin. Just 1 week before the Bad Homburg disaster, Alexandra Eala was on top of the world. She had arrived at the Berlin Open as a wildcard debutant, ranked 35th in the world. She was not supposed to make a deep run. She was not supposed to beat top 10 players. She was not supposed to become the story of the tournament. But she did all of that and more. She started by defeating Donna Vekic, the Queen's Club champion. Then came the upset of the tournament. She stunned world number 2 Elena Rybakina, the reigning Australian Open champion, 7-5, 6-4. She followed that by dismantling world number 8 Elise Svitolina, 6-3, 6-4. 2 top 10 wins in a single week. 3 top 20 victories in 4 days. All in straight sets. Eala had become the first Filipino to reach the semifinals of a WTA 500 event. She had earned a historic Wimbledon seed, the first Filipina in history to achieve such a feat. She moved up to number 29 seed in the provisional draw. She was only the second Filipino in the Open era to receive a Grand Slam seeding, joining Treat Huey, who reached the Wimbledon semifinals in 2016. The Eala effect was at its peak. Former pros declared her the biggest draw in women's tennis, bigger than Sabalenka. Her pre-tournament press conference at the Australian Open had been watched by 171,000 people. She had driven a 48% jump in ticket sales in Dubai. She had helped set a new Australian Open attendance record. Directors were desperate to have her. And the Bad Homburg Open was no exception. They had awarded her a wildcard entry into the main draw, hoping to capitalize on the Eala phenomenon. They had sold tickets on the promise of watching the Filipina sensation. The organizers were expecting record crowds. The fans had responded. The Filipino community in Europe had rallied. The tickets had moved fast. The Eala effect was a proven commodity, and Bad Homburg wanted a piece of it. But they had made a fatal mistake. They had assumed the magic would last forever. They had assumed Eala could sustain the impossible. They had not counted on the brutal reality of professional tennis. The match against Elise Mertens was supposed to be a tune-up. A chance to build momentum before Wimbledon. A chance to prove that her Berlin run was no fluke, but Mertens had other plans. Eala burst out of the gates in vintage fashion. She broke Mertens in the fourth game to take a 3-1 lead in the opening set. The start hinted at another inspired performance from the 21-year-old Filipina, and briefly rekindled memories of her giant-killing exploits from the previous week. Then everything changed. As champions often do, Mertens adjusted. The Belgian, a former world number 12 and one of the tour's most accomplished veterans, steadily absorbed Eala's early pressure before turning the match on its head. She unleashed thundering serves, punished short balls from both wings, and repeatedly charged the net with confidence and precision. What began as an encouraging opening for Eala quickly turned into a lesson in experience. Mertens rattled off 8 consecutive games. 8 straight games. She stole the first set 6-3 and raced to a 3-0 lead in the second. The momentum shift was dramatic and complete. Eala tried to regroup. She showed flashes of resistance, saving a crucial break point to move within 2-3. She even earned a break point in the 5th game of the second set. But every time she threatened to mount a comeback, Mertens had an answer. A crushing ace. A laser-guided forehand winner. A perfectly timed approach shot. The Belgian finished with a commanding performance. Eala, who had been dealing with a shoulder ailment, appeared a step slower, a little less sharp. The Filipina's body language implied she knew she was already defeated and had little chance of coming back. She had played for 4 straight weeks ahead of Wimbledon. The accumulated wear and tear from a demanding stretch of matches appeared to take its toll. By the time the final point was played, Mertens had taken 4 of the last 5 games to complete a convincing straight-set victory. The final score was 6-3, 6-3. Eala's earliest exit on grass thus far. The woman who had beaten the world number 2 just days earlier had been dismantled by a Belgian veteran. The contrast could not have been more striking. Only days earlier, Eala was dazzling crowds with her fearless shot-making and relentless energy. Against Mertens, however, she appeared defeated before the match was even over. The magic had vanished. The defeat sent shockwaves through the tournament. But not just because of the result. Because of what it meant for the fans. For the organizers. For the ticket sales. Eala's early exit had turned a sellout event into a crisis. Thousands of fans had purchased tickets specifically to see the Filipina sensation. The Bad Homburg Open had awarded Eala a wildcard entry, hoping to capitalize on her soaring popularity. They had sold tickets on the promise of watching the Eala phenomenon. The organizers had banked on the Eala effect, but with her first-round exit, that promise was broken. The tickets that had sold out were suddenly worthless. The fans who had come to see a superstar were left with nothing but disappointment. And they began walking away. The tandem of Eala and 7-time Grand Slam champion Venus Williams in the doubles draw was expected to draw a huge crowd. They can still sell so many tickets. In terms of Venus and Serena, and Eala is one of the, one report noted. But even that was now in doubt. The singles disaster had created a crisis of confidence. Would the fans still come? Would they still care? The stands that were supposed to be overflowing were suddenly half empty. The atmosphere that was supposed to be electric was suddenly subdued. The tournament that had banked on the Eala effect was left scrambling. It was a brutal reminder of the fragile economics of professional tennis. When the star exits early, the crowds follow. When the magic disappears, so do the fans. When the Eala effect vanishes, the ticket crisis begins. The defeat may not erase the gains Eala made in Berlin, but it certainly dampens the momentum she carried into Bad Homburg. And it raises fresh concerns ahead of Wimbledon, where expectations surrounding the Filipina have never been higher. Despite the singles disaster, Eala's week in Bad Homburg was not yet over. She remained in the doubles draw, partnered with tennis icon Venus Williams. The duo was scheduled to play their opening match, taking on alternate entrants Catherine Harrison of the United States and Alexandra Osborne of Australia. It was a chance to regain confidence. A chance to salvage something from a disappointing tournament. A chance to give the fans something to cheer about. the pairing of youth and experience was a fascinating story in itself. Eala, the rising star, and Williams, the grizzled veteran, joining forces at a WTA 500 event. It was a passing of the torch moment that had captured the imagination of tennis fans around the world. "I'm really excited," Eala had said of the partnership. "Venus Williams is such a trailblazer, and continues to do so much, and has done so much for the sport." The duo was expected to draw a huge crowd. The combination of Eala's star power and Williams' legendary status was a potent draw. Williams, a 7-time Grand Slam singles champion, is a legend of the game. Even at 46, her presence on the court commands attention. For Eala, the doubles partnership offered a chance to regroup. A chance to shake off the disappointment of her singles exit. A chance to build momentum heading into Wimbledon, but the damage had already been done. The singles disaster had created a ticket crisis. The fans were walking away. The Eala effect had vanished. And the tournament was left to deal with the aftermath. The defeat in Bad Homburg was a setback. But it was not the end of the story. The loss may not erase the gains Eala made in Berlin, but it certainly dampens the momentum she carried into Bad Homburg and raises fresh concerns ahead of Wimbledon, where expectations surrounding the Filipina have never been higher. Former players and analysts had repeatedly warned that managing energy levels is crucial before a Grand Slam. One tennis legend even suggested that Eala should consider taking a break following her emotionally and physically draining Berlin campaign, arguing that recovery could prove just as important as match play before Wimbledon. Those concerns seemed to surface against Mertens. The accumulated wear and tear from a demanding stretch of matches appeared to take its toll. Eala had played 11 matches in June alone. She had played for 4 straight weeks ahead of Wimbledon. The physical and emotional toll of her Berlin campaign was immense. But the defeat also provided context. Mertens is a seasoned campaigner and world number 26. She has now beaten Eala 3 times in as many meetings. The Belgian is one of the tour's most accomplished veterans, a former world number 12. For Eala, the loss was a harsh reminder that the path to greatness is not linear. It is filled with setbacks, with lessons, with moments that test your resolve. The silver lining is that Eala still has an opportunity to regain confidence in doubles, where she is partnered with Venus Williams. The defeat, according to some analysts, could actually be a blessing in disguise. Ahead of Wimbledon, giving Eala much-needed rest before the Grand Slam, Eala still heads to Wimbledon armed with a career-high world number 30 ranking, where she is guaranteed a seeding of at least number 29. She is the first Filipino player to be seeded at a Grand Slam event since Treat Huey. The ticket crisis in Bad Homburg was a brutal reminder of the fragile nature of fame. The fans who walked away will return. The Eala effect will continue. But the lesson is clear: in professional tennis, nothing is guaranteed. Not the wins. Not the crowds. Not the magic. And for Alexandra Eala, the biggest challenge lies ahead, and that, my friends, is how a 21-year-old from Quezon City learned that even the most magical runs must come to an end. She lost in Bad Homburg. Yes. The fans walked away. Yes. The ticket crisis was real. Yes. But in doing so, she proved something far more important. She proved that she can compete with the best. She proved that she belongs. She proved that this is just the beginning. The dream may have paused in Bad Homburg, but Wimbledon awaits. This is the rise of Alexandra Eala. This is history in the making. And trust me, this is only the beginning.